We don't have a massive complex of hurricane force winds moving across Texas this morning, so that's a nice change of pace compared to the last several days. But unfortunately, we still had storm issues overnight. And after a little period of less active weather, I've refused to say the Q word anymore. It looks like we're going to get busy tonight, Thursday, Friday, with thunderstorm chances continuing into the weekend. Yay. Let's talk about it in this Hump Day edition of the Texas Weather Roundup. Good morning. It's Wednesday, the 29th of May, 2024. I'm Texas Storm Chasers Baldy-in-Chief David Reimer. We did have thunderstorms last evening, continue into early this morning. We had one cluster move across parts of the Edwards Plateau, the Rio Grande Plains, into South Texas. Those had some strong wind gusts. We had some mostly behaving thunderstorms move across the hill country in central Texas overnight, but the worst came with what's called a wake low on the backside of the departing or weakening thunderstorm cluster, where subsidence, or in this case, an area of low pressure on the backside of that system, resulted in very strong winds. Some winds over 60 miles an hour across parts of central Texas, which has resulted in a few tens of thousands of folks without power in central Texas. Just for what it's worth, anytime we have storm clusters over the next several days, that's going to be a thing. On the backside of the system, right after it's about to stop raining, the wake low event, that's going to happen. We had the same thing yesterday afternoon in DFW, North Texas. This morning, Central Texas. We'll probably have it with storm complexes over the coming days. On the backside of them, we had a couple of severe storms move across West Texas, the big country, yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening. Then this morning, we had a little bow echo move from eastern New Mexico to areas just west and south of Lubbock. Loveland, who got, DVD-size hail yesterday afternoon from a supercell, got clobbered with hurricane-force winds and wind-driven hail this morning, and that's actually done quite a bit of damage, especially the north sides of Loveland. We've seen some mobile homes that were destroyed, a lot of windows broken out, and then as that moved over to Hoka, south of Lubbock, this morning, a 93-mile-per-hour wind gust. That stuff looks like it's weakening now. Hopefully that means, we might actually have relatively calm rest of the morning and afternoon. We're going to have a few storms this afternoon, it looks like. Let's actually talk about what's going to happen. Here's a severe weather outlook for this afternoon. Now notice the potential for isolated severe storms. This does not necessarily mean we're talking weak storms. It just means we're not expecting many storms, at least based right now. If confidence in a specific solution increases, we may see some scattered severe thunderstorm potential become evident. Regardless, this afternoon, this evening, the potential for isolated severe storms. The Panhandle, West Texas, the Permian Basin, the Eastern Big Bend, the Edwards Plateau, the Concho Valley, the Big Country, the Hill Country, South Central Texas, Central Texas, the Brazos Valley, the Coastal Plains, Southeast Texas, East Texas, Northeast Texas. Strongest storms this afternoon, this evening, maybe up to tennis ball size hail, localized damaging winds, tornado threat very low. We may see some supercells off the dryline in West Texas, the Panhandle again, and we may see a few pop-ups this afternoon over the eastern half of Texas, just, warm, unstable air mass. But a lot of that'll depend on the recovery of the air mass after all the storms yesterday and even into this morning. Let's take a look at the high-res rapid refresh model for this afternoon. You can see this does, again, a few storms eastern half of Texas. May see a few storms off the dry line, the Panhandle, West Texas, maybe the Edwards Plateau. Then a complex of storms tonight in the eastern Panhandle, Oklahoma into North Texas, and Northeast Texas tomorrow morning. We'll go back and look at that in a minute, but let's just look at tomorrow's severe weather outlook before we get into that. Again, this would be maybe tomorrow morning, pre-dawn hours, maybe complex of storms eastern half of the Panhandle, southwest Kansas, Oklahoma Panhandle. That could move into Oklahoma and translate into portions of North Texas, Texoma, and Northeast Texas. tomorrow morning, early tomorrow afternoon. If that happens, it's one of these, again, conditional threats. It's not a guarantee. Forecasting the specific evolution and development of thunderstorm clusters in this kind of an environment is difficult and really can only be done after storms start developing. And then, from there you can kind of project it out or extrapolate it out, 6-10 hours. But in this kind of a situation, again, damaging winds, hail possible. Now we could see scattered supercells tomorrow afternoon, Panhandle, West Texas, big hail, strong winds, maybe a tornado. The potential that may grow upscale into another cluster that would then move southeast towards the big country, northwest Texas, Texoma, North Texas for Thursday night and Friday morning. And yes, damaging winds possible with that. Now let's go back and take a look at the HRRR. And again, don't expect things to look like what this model shows explicitly. We're dealing with a very complex environment. I'm just trying to give you a sense of the overall setup. So again, storm cluster maybe tonight in the Panhandle, moving into Texoma, North Texas tomorrow morning, early Thursday afternoon. If that happens, that cluster is going to go all the way to Louisiana, damaging winds, hail, maybe a spin-up tornado, kind of like we did yesterday morning in terms of the complex of storms evolution, not necessarily the intensity. Hopefully we're not doing 100-mile-an-hour straight line winds, but at the same time, yeah, some of these storms would probably have damaging winds and hail, whether or not it's early Thursday afternoon or earlier in the morning, because sometimes these run faster than what models predict. Yeah, we're going to have to keep an eye on it. That's something we'll be watching for in the upcoming data set later this morning, this afternoon, and we'll be able to give you a better idea on the evolution of that in our afternoon video update. Now, tomorrow afternoon, again, we're going to have more storms develop. The Panhandle, both the Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle, maybe into West Texas. You can see we actually fire off a few nasty-looking supercells in parts of the big country, eastern Permian Basin, West Texas. Those could have softball-sized hail, to be perfectly honest with you. Damaging winds. And then you can see the beginning of what looks like another cluster of storms already developing early Thursday evening. Those would race southeast across the big country into North Texas, the hill country, central Texas, and that would have the potential for a pretty nasty round of damaging winds and hail. Heavy rain, flooding once again. So, yeah, we may be relatively calm, this morning, this afternoon, minus more isolated storms, and then we start this whole storm train thing again early Thursday morning. And then we could, have maybe 2 or 3 rounds of storm clusters moving southeast across Texas tomorrow morning through Friday morning. For what it's worth, let's take a look at the severe weather outlook for Friday. Notice the Storm Prediction Center highlighting the potential for scattered severe storms. Big country, North Texas, Texoma, Northeast Texas, the Arklatex, East Texas, Golden Triangle, Southeast Texas, back into the Brazos Valley, Central Texas, the Hill Country. And again, that would be, we could have thunderstorm clusters with damaging winds, hail, flooding rainfall. We're looking at multiple thunderstorm clusters expected in the state over, really the next 3 days. Hopefully, again, most of today we're comparatively quiet, but then tomorrow busy, Friday busy, and then we may even have some chance for storms on Saturday and Sunday, but the convective evolution with that remains more unclear since, each prior round of storms impacts the downstream possibilities, like how yesterday morning storms ended up pushing an outflow boundary all the way to South Texas and kind of eliminated the whole crazy, nasty complex of storms we had the possibility of dealing with last night to this morning across the Concho Valley, the Hill Country, etc. It really reduced that intensity, but we still had storms. For what it's worth, again, here's the global forecast system over the next few days. You can see Friday, it has that cluster of storms moving east. We have another cluster Friday night across parts of central Texas, southeast Texas. As we go into Saturday, we're probably going to have more storms develop across the dryline and the Panhandle, West Texas, the Permian Basin, the Edwards Plateau. Those supercells would then develop into a cluster that would move east towards I-35 by Sunday morning from Texoma, North Texas, Central Texas, the specific paths. Again, we need to This, unfortunately, a lot of these are just day of events where we're literally going to have to look out the window, look at satellite data, look at surface weather observations to figure out where we have boundaries, where we're going to see storms initiate, and then where those storms are most likely to, evolve into clusters and then track southeast. We deal with this a lot in the late spring, early summer months, and, look at the last 15 years, these storm trains where we have just clusters of storms move across the state at night into the following morning after, individual discrete supercells the afternoon prior. So again, this isn't unusual or anything. It's just, we've been hyperactive really for the last 5 weeks, and everyone's a little sensitive. Which is fair. We've had hurricane force wind events now in DFW, Houston, Temple, parts of West Texas. We had wake low winds this morning in Austin, and we're probably going to have more hurricane force wind type events with some of these complexes of storms over the next few days. So we're probably going to be busy. That is not a guarantee you're going to get hit with one of these. And again, even if you do, not all of these squall lines all have damaging winds. It's subsections of each squall line, stronger sections of them, stronger storms. But clearly, where they're rowdy, they are really rowdy. And that's just been because, have you stepped outside and realized it felt like the Gulf of Mexico? Minus the part where yesterday's outflow boundary kind of made things more bearable. Well, it's going to feel like the Gulf of Mexico again coming up. So that makes the atmosphere extremely unstable. Forecasts are into the next few days across the state. We're just doing through 7 a.m. Saturday. Keep in mind, we're probably going to have scattered shower and storm chances continue into the day Saturday and Sunday, but this takes us into June 1st. Looking at another probably decent coverage of 1 to 4 inches of rain. Eastern Panhandle, Northwest Texas, the Big Country, Concho Valley, Central Texas, North Texas, Texoma, Northeast Texas, the Arklatex, East Texas, kind of the Brazos Valley. And yes, flooding will be an issue. We saw that yesterday in the DFW Metroplex where, all these storms have been very efficient rainfall producers, clearly. Again, feels like Gulf of Mexico. There's a lot of moisture in place. When it rains, it really rains hard and flooding. So at this point, the Golden Triangle, Southeast Texas, the coastal plains, down into the Edwards Plateau, South Texas, maybe, 1/4 to 1/2 inch of rain up to 2 inches locally. But if we end up having one of these thunderstorm complexes track over, say, Houston or Victoria Friday night, which is a possibility, those rain totals are going to go up. Because, these are regionalized, kind of broad-stroked forecasts here, when in reality we have more hyper-local differences in rain totals where some folks get, 1/4 inch of rain, some folks get 5 inches. Same principle applies here. So, yay, weather. Isn't it fun when it's active? Don't you miss the days when it's just, 100 degrees every day? Or the biggest forecast quandary is it going to be 99 or 100? Well, don't worry. We'll probably get there at some point, assuming we're not dealing with hurricanes every 10 days, which we might, hopefully not. Wildfire forecast. Well, this one's not too difficult. Eastern 75% of Texas, low to moderate wildfire danger for the rest of the week because of, it feeling like the Gulf of Mexico and these storm chances. But we do have very high to extreme wildfire danger. The Guadalupe Mounds, the Trans-Pecos, down to the Davis Mounds, parts of the Big Bend, all the Big Bend, down to the borderland of far west Texas. So just because, the eastern 75% of the state is feeling like Florida or Key West, western quarter is still dealing with very hot, dry conditions behind the dry line. All right, let's look at temperatures over the next 5 days. One benefit of the rain chances, besides some folks needing to fill lakes, and some folks, clearly don't, but some folks do. Cooler temperatures today. High temperatures only in the 70s to mid-80s, northern half of the state. Southern half of the state, it's still going to be warm and humid, but still, it's going to be comparatively cooler. It's not going to be 113 degrees. Highs 90s, right around 100. Tomorrow, warming up a bit, but again, northeastern half of the state 80s, southwestern half of the state 90s, low triple digits. Friday, increased rain chances. Again, looks like we're going to be dealing with multiple thunderstorm complexes, so back into the 70s to low 80s, northeastern maybe 50 to 60% of the state, 90s, upper 80s, southwestern 30 to 40% of the state. Saturday, really actually highs in the 80s to 90s across the state as a whole, a bit cooler across the southern portions of the state. And then we're going to start warming up on Sunday, especially back across the Panhandle, West Texas. Y'all enjoy 70s the next few days. You're back up in the mid to upper 90s by Sunday, but still, it could be a lot worse, and it's still going to be cooler statewide than what we saw over the last several days. So yeah, clear-cut message here is, yeah, we're going to be busy in the thunderstorm department with multiple rounds of thunderstorm clusters moving across the state over the next several days, but hopefully we get a bit of a break this morning, this afternoon. I hope so. I really do. But I mean, we'll have to keep an eye on some of these residual boundaries, because once you get storms underway, they really don't dissipate easily in this kind of an environment, which is why, a storm in Dallas ends up going all the way, in this case, to Houston yesterday afternoon, because they needed more damaging winds. They did not. I'm being satirical, sarcastic. Yeah. But again, it's just not an easy forecast to try to pinpoint exactly where we're going to see these complexes of storms develop and move, because it depends on what happens with the prior round and how the atmosphere behaves. And it's more complex when you're dealing with a tropical environment, because Mother Nature's a fickle thing when it comes to all this. Well, technically it's meteorology, but whatever. So yeah, unfortunately we are probably going to be dealing with more rounds of severe weather, where we have storms pop up in the afternoon off the dry line, parts of Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, western Texas. Drop softball-sized hail for a few hours, maybe a few tornadoes, localized damaging winds, then they form into a cluster of storms that races southeast over the following, 12 to 18 hours, traversing several hundred miles with the potential for damaging winds, flooding, rainfall, hail, lightning. And we could have like 4 or 5 rounds of that over the next 4 days. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on it, but hopefully today we can at least get a break. Thank you to those who have helped us reach 40,000 subscribers on the Texas Weather Center YouTube channel. I realize that's probably because we've been crazy busy the last several days, and, yesterday's unpleasant bow echo derecho type event. It might be classifiable as a serial derecho, since it did produce damaging straight line winds all the way from, DFW to Houston, about 200 miles. Typically, a derecho needs to be at least 250 miles, but it doesn't matter. It was unpleasant, and we're probably going to be dealing with more of those over the next few days. So we'll keep you updated here at the Texas Storm Chasers. Thank you very much for tuning in this morning. We appreciate it. As always, you can get your local weather forecast in the free Texas Storm Chasers mobile app. Just search for Texas Storm Chasers where you download apps for your device. I must be waking up from a nightmare because my phone's going ring-a-ding-ding. All right. Thank you. You'll have a good day. We'll talk this afternoon. God bless.